Welcome to Go Against Podcast, a podcast about we haven't quite decided yet, but we're going to keep doing it anyway. I'm Colby.
And I'm a fucking clown, and you're about to join the circus. But you can call me Fee.
Well, that was really threatening.
I don't know why.
I mean, listen, I agreed with you being a fucking clown. So, behind the scenes, we are recording this at 11 p.m. right now. And here's why. So, Fee messages me earlier. And was like, "Hey, we're recording tonight." I said, "Yeah, but it's gonna have to be a little later. I'm playing games with some friends right now." If he was like, "Oh, that's fine. I got to go to Portland," which if you're not from South Texas, Portland is basically like the town that you go to when you actually need stuff. Like, our hometown can service your needs a little bit, but if you need anything from like a Walmart or a GameStop or like anywhere with civilization, you have to go to Portland. So that's like the errand running place.
It's about 15 minutes away.
Yeah, and it's 15 minutes away. It's like it's convenient to get to. So here I am. I'm like, oh, Fee must be going to go like buy groceries or pay a bill or buy a video game. Like those are the options that like I have in my head. And we get done playing games. I'm like, oh man, it's like, it's 9 something. We should probably record soon. So I'm like, hey Fee, let me are you back? And he's like, no, I'm still in Portland. I was like, oh. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Strange.
Just tell me whenever you're back. And he's like, okay. Nothing. I hear nothing from this man. And then it gets to be, I'm like, I sent him another message like, hey, I'm like, I'm going to make a coffee for this. So like, let me know when you like are on your way back. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you motherfucker, you're still out there. What are you doing in Portland? What can you possibly do in Portland on like Memorial Day at what time is it? 9 or at that point it was like 10:15.
It was like, yeah.
So finally, Fee comes back. And I find out as he's on his way back, it was because he was meeting up with someone. I went, oh, it was one of those. Listen, if I would have known that we were on Fee time, I would have said, oh, well, we're on Fee time then. I mean, this could be at any time tonight. Fee could be back at 2 a.m. and be like, time get away from me.
I'm sorry. I did. Okay. Like I planned to be back like sooner. I really did. But one thing led to another, and it ended up being long. Things happen. And on the way back, I had to put gas. So that took like a few minutes. And God.
This is my favorite part. Anytime that you call Fee out for being late, Fee then enumerates every single thing that took any amount of time. Wow. And then like I hit the stop sign and I had to sit at the stop sign for 2 seconds.
I was speeding like so fast. I was like, a fucking cop's going to be back here in the back roads and they're going to stop me and I'm going to be, what could I tell them? I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry, officer. I have to go record a podcast.
I have to go do a podcast. Yeah,
and my co-host is like mad at me.
That's the thing is like the back roads, like out, like basically our hometown is surrounded by fields, which means that there's like, usually they're not always dirt. Like a lot of them have asphalt. And so that means that you can just go 120 miles an hour in the back roads. And a cop is not going to sit like waiting for a speeder on a 2-lane road. Like there's probably a grand total of 50 cars that use that road in a day. Yeah. So like, when you're on the back roads, it's time to speed. I have never heard of anyone getting pulled over in the back roads.
It's different now. And cops do post out back there because Portland has that refinery that's near the back road. So people use it a lot more.
Okay, yeah. Now I'm getting a bigger picture of this. Okay.
And it's easier to go to the back roads because you bypass all the stoplights. Mm-hmm. You bypass stop signs. You just bypass everything. There is a speed limit back there because I think my mom had once got pulled over by a cop and they're like, you know how fast you were going? And my mom was like 70. And they're like, well, the posted speed limit is 65. And my mom's like, where? And
yeah, where's that posted?
The cop is like, right when you get like out of Portland, and she's like, but there's no other sign anywhere. And he's like, well, I'm going to give you a warning this time.
Man.
She's like, okay.
Cool, I guess.
Yeah, for that, like, what else could you say? Like, like, he really had nothing to pull. Like, there's no posted speed limit from Portland to Taft or to Odom. There's no posted speed limit.
Yeah, everything back there is, I mean, it may as well be just like the lawless Wild West. Like, you can do anything on those roads and there's no one there. Like,
oh,
it's,
dude, you don't even
like, God turns a blind eye to the back roads.
People go back there to hook up. I mean, there's a graveyard back there. There's a vet clinic back there, but people go to those back roads to fucking hook up. Now, that's not where I was. I hate being outside and sweaty. If someone's like, why don't we go hook up in the back roads? I'm like,
oh God,
I don't like to be. I'm like, there's bugs.
There's bugs.
It'll probably be. I'm like, it'll probably be on the side of the road. So, like, in the grass, there's snakes. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no. I'm like, we can go to my house or your house, but like, not in the back roads. Just. God,
and like
no.
this is by the way, South Texas, like, and
the heat.
You can imagine that. So I'm looking at the temperature right now, and the humidity is always somewhere between like 50 and 100, and and you can imagine it's like 85 degrees. This is like a pretty like brisk week for May.
Yeah.
But like. Yeah, it gets up to, 100 degrees, 80% humidity. Like, going outside at night is still hell. Like, you're dying out there.
You better hope there's a breeze. Like, a breeze feels nice in between just the humid.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh man, this breeze feels good. Then it stops, and then you're like, oh God, I'm in Texas still.
I'm looking at the times. At 3 a.m, it is 81 degrees outside in Taft. Like, it's inhabitable. I have gotten used to Texas. That's the one thing is like, I saw on Twitter there were some people that were like, oh, blah blah blah. We've got this conference coming up that's like in Texas, and I'm not like, I don't have any clothes for 100-degree weather. And somebody replied and was like, well, and it's not even just that bad because like having clothes for 100-degree weather is a thing that you can do. You can buy like thinner shirts and like shorts or whatever.
Yeah.
But you also have to have a jacket because if you're going to be spending time inside, like everywhere inside is like 72 degrees, 68 degrees. And so like you have to be prepared to either go inside and just be cold or go outside and die. Like you can't have it both ways in Texas. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Businesses in Texas have realized that it is scalding hot and just gross outside. So when you go inside, they have the AC just fucking blasting.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you go anywhere inside, it's just really cold. Except for Walmart and Target, I've noticed. But I think that's because there's a lot of people in there and the doors are always opening and closing. Yeah. Because when I walk around Walmart or Target, I'm like always with my mom or someone. I'm like, God, it's hot in here. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, it's a little warm, but I mean, what are you going to do? I got to shop.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like, so Texas, because, a lot of people from Texas really like to brag, like, oh, 100-degree weather, haha, people dying up in the Northeast whenever it gets above 90. And, like, it's similar, like, they make fun of us whenever that big freeze came along. They were like, wow, things froze and you all died? Crazy.
I was going to say, we're, like, opposite of Canada. Like, if it gets, like, down to the 50s down here, like 60s, and we're like, fuck, it's cold up there. They're like, oh man, that's fucking no shirt outside season.
Yeah, ooh, like, it's nice outside. You're like, oh God. But like, the thing is, like, we'd like to talk a real big game about like, oh yeah, like 100-degree weather is like fine, it's nothing. The only time that you deal with 100-degree weather is like whenever you go outside, and in like, especially I'm imagining like a regular day, somebody who like wakes up, goes to work, and then gets off work, goes to go buy groceries and comes home. There are the times in which you're between your house and your car, and then your car has to cool down while you're driving. And then usually when you go to work, most places are air conditioned. If you're like doing any kind of like desk job, or you're doing like retail or like service industry stuff like that, usually you're like in an air conditioned space. If you're like in a refinery or whatever, like you're hot the whole time, and that sucks. So you can definitely be like 100-degree weather's whatever. I go outside with no shirt on, I don't care. Like, all right, I get you. You're tough. But for the rest of us, it is like an hour a day you're out in like 100-degree weather. Anyone can resist that, because the rest of the time it's all air conditioned. Like everywhere is air conditioned.
That's definitely my job. But the thing about like the people that work outside in the fucking sun, like construction, or being at a refinery, they wear long sleeve and gloves and like these heavy jeans and basically like masks and stuff on their head, because the less the sun hits you, the less you'll be hot.
Yeah,
So,
it's like it's a combo of stuff too, because like if the sun's not hitting you, so you're number one, your skin's not getting burned, but number two, so you're not getting that direct heat. If as you heat up and you start to sweat more, you'll sweat into your clothes, which will also, like, if there's any amount of breeze, that sweat will stay on you, and you'll like cool off that way. So like, it's not ideal.
Insulated. So that's I had a friend that was from Washington that lived down here, and she was going to school, and she finally went back to Washington. She's like, I'm so glad I'm back up here. I was so tired of fucking swamp ass. And I'm like, yeah.
Dude,
that's South Texas. I'm like,
I mean, that's the thing though, is like, what if you're forced to go outside, you know how to dress for it, because like I'm like you never see like a Bedouin people like out with like sleeveless and shorts like in the desert, like, oh, whatever, it's fine, I'm cooling off out here. Like they all know you got to protect yourself from the sun. You got to like let the sweat do its work and let your body cool you off. And it's like that, like that's hardcore. So whenever people up north are like, oh, we're all cool weather, like I'll go outside and hang out whenever it's like 40 degrees. I can guarantee you it's because up there, a lot of clothes that they sell, and like they all have like different layers of coats, and like you'll see like, oh yeah, this person is wearing a hoodie underneath their like outdoor coat, and it's like, I don't have an outdoor coat, I only have hoodies.
That reminds me of a post I saw on Twitter, right? So it was this person posting that in New York. They're like, a homeless person in New York froze to death in like 30-something degree weather in the subway, right? And immediately the top post was, that's not even cold, I'm from wherever. And then the second post to that, the reply was that he died. He froze to death. Like, what do you mean that's not cold? Just
it's cold enough for someone to die, man.
Yeah, it's cold enough for someone to freeze to death.
Yeah, it's like
that's not even fucking.
It's like somebody being like, "Oh man, yeah, my cousin, he jumped into a 4-foot pool and got a cramp and drowned on accident. It was really weird." And somebody replied, "That's not that deep." Motherfucker, does it matter?
I'm like, he died and he drowned. It doesn't matter how tall it was. Babies drown all the time in less than an inch water.
The thing is, and I will say, like, so I lived up in Oregon for 3 months, and like I lived up there in probably the ideal time to live up there, because it was June to like August, and in that, or I guess mid-May to early August. Anyway, it's like an ideal time to go up there because the sun goes down and it gets to be like, 9 p.m. and you have to put on a sweater or like a coat to go outside because it's like 50 degrees in May. And you're like, wow, dang, it's like, that's crazy. And when I was getting like a tour of my apartment, they were like, I was like, oh yeah, good, like thermostat and everything. And she was like, oh yeah, well, you won't be needing that. And I was like, what do you mean I won't be needing that? And she's like, well, I mean, you're not going to heat anything. And I said, did I just sign a lease for an apartment without air conditioning? And she's like, oh, you won't need air conditioning. It's not a big deal. And I was like, oh, fuck. I ended up like buying a portable air conditioner and like doing that whole setup. Because like, as much as people up in Oregon are like, oh, you don't need an air conditioner up here, it's fine. It only gets up to like 90 degrees in the middle of the day and it's fine at the end of the day. They don't like, I guess that they have like better ventilated homes than I do, because I would come home from work like, you know, hottest part of the year, July, you know, mid-July, I'm coming home, I'm opening my apartment door and it's like 90 degrees in my apartment. I'm like throwing open the doors and the windows and trying to get the hot air out. And like, as much as they're like, oh yeah, you're only going to need air conditioning like 2 or 3 times a day. I talked to my brother who lives up there and he was like, yeah, I just, you know, if it gets too hot, you know, I load up the family and we just go walk around the mall or go see a movie or go to the grocery store for a long time. And I'm like, motherfucker, that's no way to live. What are you doing? Just get air conditioning.
Yeah. The thing, when you get too hot, you go outside and jump in a river. And you just come back in.
That's it. Listen, I got the secret. Well, are you hanging out in the shade? Because that's it. That, you know, if you sit in the shade, that'll... Yes, I know about shade.
Then you put your jelly in the pantry.
Yeah, this is the same brother that's like, yeah, what are you doing putting your jelly in the fridge? Same guy.
God, it's too cold in there.
He's a weird dude anyway, because like I came up to Oregon and I moved up there. First night, I was sleeping in downtown, so the next day I was like, hey, I'm going to drive out to my apartment. Would you mind, like, I've got just a couple of things that are, like, really heavy. Like, can you help me load them into my apartment? And he was like, yeah, sure, because I got this, like, I had this old plasma screen TV that was, like, really heavy. And so he comes to my apartment. I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm here. Just, like, come over whenever. And he was like, cool, yeah. So he comes over, and he just picks up my TV by himself and walks it up to my apartment and puts it down. And then we go back out to my car, and, like, we each take up a load. And then he's like, well, that looks like you're all moved in. And I was like, yeah, it does. And he's like, all right, well, I got to get home, so I'll see you later. And it's like, you've been here like 20 minutes at this point. We said hi. You loaded up my TV yourself. And then you helped me carry up one more thing. And we talked for a little bit. And then you left after 20 minutes. We haven't seen each other in 10 years, man. He's just like, I got to go.
This was enough. This was enough. I'm tired of looking at you.
Yeah, listen. We stay apart for a reason. The thing is, that's not even that weird in my family. Like, so for those of you that don't know, like, we got married and my mom passed away the morning of our wedding, right? Very weird occurrence, extremely strange thing to happen. We went on with the wedding because I was like, yeah, it seems like a thing that mom would want me to do, is like get married anyway. Don't like have everybody come back out. And frankly, I was also worried that my family wasn't going to come out a second time. And that fear was proven correct, because the ceremony finishes and then we start taking pictures, right? Ceremony starts. We do the ceremony. It takes like 20 minutes. Start taking pictures. So my family they came up the night before. They had like the reception dinner, and then they woke up the next day, got ready, spent 30 minutes at the place where we're getting married, and then my uncle and my aunt and my grandmother all came up and were like, well, this was a beautiful ceremony. Anyway, we got to get going back home. And I was like,
it's about time.
Reception hasn't even started. Like, they're all like, no food has been served, no cake has been served, not like, we're just basically in the time, they call it the cocktail hour, but like, we're in that time where it's like, just hang out, get to know everyone, like, come take pictures if you need to. Like, they stayed for family pictures and then they were zooming out of here. And that's like very typical of my family. Also, my grandmother is old enough that she doesn't give a shit about people dying. So legitimately, one of the last things she said to me before she left the wedding was like, oh, did your mother have a laptop that maybe I could have? Went, oh my God. Mimi, why? Why would you ask that? I said, yeah, she did. I'll wipe it and give it to you. And she said, oh, good. That's so nice. Thank you.
I knew she'd want me to have it.
You know, I had a feeling that she would really want me to have that laptop. Anyway, we do have to be leaving.
We gotta, but that laptop, right? Here's my address.
You'll just ship it to me. You could just ship it. All right, baby.
God damn.
But yeah, that's a very typical thing for my family. It's just like, well, yeah, it is about that time. Like, same thing happened when my dad passed. We called as many family members. We were like, listen, things are not going well. He is in hospice, which means like this man has like a ticking time bomb. He will die within the next couple of days. So like my aunt, my uncle, my grandmother, everyone came and descended on my parents' house. That day, my dad died. He died at like 2-3 in the morning. They finally like got his body out around 5. We all went to sleep, woke up at like, 10, 11, and my family was already leaving. They were like, well, that was that. Good luck. Bye. It's like, motherfucker.
He's in a better place. I better get back to what I was doing.
Yeah, well, listen, I gotta be in a better place now, too. My house. I gotta go.
No time to grieve, only time to grind.
Yeah, I come from a family of Sigma males. That's what it is.
He'd want it this way. Us not crying over him. Look at you, you fucking beta.
Yeah,
God
wow.
damn.
Wow, gotta handle his estate like a little bitch. Yes.
Dad wanted his whole house and everything he owned burned. God. Like a man, a Viking funeral.
Including him. Why is this house not on fire?
God damn. Like, that's so opposite. Like I'm so close with my... And like, just my family, because my extended family is pretty much like yours. I don't really talk to them. My mom talks to them, but, like, we don't, like, really hang out anymore. Like, I don't do it. I never liked going to my aunt's house, like, ever. Yeah. I never liked doing anything. I was just like, lived there like, hey, let's go to our aunt's house. I'm like, can I just stay? And I'm like 10 years old. I'm like, the PlayStation's right there. I'm like, if y'all have something in the freezer, I can microwave it. I'm not even worried. Mm-hmm. And like at first, the first few times they were just like, I mean, okay, I guess, but don't enter the door for anyone. I'm like, I'm just gonna be in the room. Just lock the door. I'll never come out.
Yeah, I don't care.
Fucking. Why would I go out? Like I said, I had cable and the PlayStation was right there. Just there's no need.
Yeah, why would you leave?
But my mom and like my sister, my dad and brother, we were like very close. And even before I moved in back with my mom, we would call each other every day, and like I would always be on a 3-way call with my mom, my sister. And like even now, like she comes home and she's like, hey, I'm going to go to the store. You want to go? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And like no one thinks anything different. Mm-hmm. And my sister, like, she's always fucking down to clown for her family. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Like...
I think, like, the same sort of thing happened with... Because, like, we used to live all in a town in West Texas called Midland. Like, almost all of my family did.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then my dad got transferred as part of his job down to Corpus. And so that's whenever we moved... and so it was like, well, we go back up to Midland on, we go back up there for Christmas and we go back up there for Thanksgiving. And about 3 or 4 years into that, my mom got pneumonia, like right before Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving. And so, my dad was like, yeah, sorry, we can't go up to, to Midland for Thanksgiving. So we're just going to stay here. And, after that Thanksgiving, he was like, wow, that was probably the most relaxing, nice Thanksgiving I've had in a very long time. So let's just never go to Midland again. And so that's just what it became, is like for the next couple of years, he'd be like, Sherry's got pneumonia again. Gotta stay down here.
Damn that seasonal pneumonia.
To be fair, my mom did get pneumonia every year, like clockwork. Yeah. It's just, it was never on Thanksgiving except that one time. So, for the first couple of times we were like, yeah, we're just not going to go up there because, she's sick, but we'll come up there eventually. And then at some point it was just, no one asked any more questions. They were like, they're just not going to be here.
They're just not coming. It's fine. I've had Thanksgiving with your family once before.
Yeah.
And boy, it was fun. Your Gam was there. It was great.
Yeah.
I met your Gammy twice.
Yeah, she my grandma, my mom's side was like, God, she's the racist one that like racisted in public, and my mom left. my mom left my dad there to be like, you just pick up these pieces. I have to leave because she racisted at someone in a Luby's. And my mom was like, oh God, I have to leave.
Gotta go. Fucking.
But yeah, my other grandma, my dad's mom, she's still alive. Still like, I called her a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, she's still kicking. I called her a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, she's the one who asked for the laptop. She's like, I fell in. Yeah, she's like, I fell in the alley, and it was fine. Someone helped me up, and I walked inside, and you know, I told your Uncle Ralph, and he came over, and then they called the paramedics, and they said, well, do you want to go to the hospital? And I said, no, I feel okay. And so, I mean, she's like 92 at this point. She's like very much like at peace with the idea that like, she tells me just casually, like, oh yeah, one of my friends died last week. It's just not, it doesn't even occur to her anymore that like that's a thing to be sad about. She's like, whatever.
She's like, listen, I'm like nearing the end, and of course my friends are gonna go, so it's no surprise. She's like, I don't know if you remember it, but there was a King of the Hill episode, right, where it was a Christmas episode, and it was Betty White voice acted this old lady, and she used to live in Hank Hill's house before he bought it and like remodeled it. And she was like, hey, I just came to see what the old house was about and during Christmas. And Hank being Hank is like, yeah, look at all my fucking work and this is all the stuff. And then she's like, oh, by the way, I want to die here and I'm going to die here soon. And Hank's like, whoa. And like, so like, he's just like, you're not going to die in my house. So then like, he gets a police restraining order to keep her away, and she keeps trying to like sneak in and just die where no one can see her, and everyone's mad at Hank, and he's like, well, if you're so fucking worried about it, why don't you go let her die in your house? And everyone's like, well, we don't want that.
Well,
and then until finally she was like, oh, I'm not gonna die, like y'all are too nice a family, because Hank at the end just accepted it. Fine, you can come and die. And then she ended up being like, no, y'all are too good, so I'm just not going to die here yet anyway, but I will come back. She never came back.
Nice.
But Betty White in real life died, so I guess there's the end of that story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the final thing. Betty, that character died along with Betty White.
Exactly. I think if I were to die, I'd like to die in a dignified position. Like, I'd like to die in bed, maybe, or, like, just on the couch watching TV, maybe, or, like, something peaceful. I don't want to be, like, mid-shit heart attack Elvis Presley style, and they find me on the toilet with my pants down. Or, like, in the shower, just soaking up water all naked and old.
Yeah, and like nobody finds you for a while, so when someone does find you, you've like absorbed a lot of water and you smell real bad. And...
and no one wants to help me, and they're just like,
oh God. Ew. To be fair, like I get recommended a lot of stuff on YouTube video. My YouTube algorithm is very messed up because I watch people that like clear drains and stuff. And so I got recommended this guy that just all he does is mows lawns. That's his whole YouTube channel, is he like mows lawns and edges like overgrown lawns. And he got me with the clickbait title that was like, I mowed this lawn at a house that turned out to be a crime scene ? And I was like, ooh. So
all right, I gotta see this.
I open his video, I watch it for a little bit, I fast forward to the part, and it turns out that like he's like he started talking to the camera, and his wife had come and like helped him out, and then his wife leaves, and he's like, well, I didn't want to say this while she was here, but while I was mowing, I got this real awful smell like toward the back of the house, and you never forget the smell of death once you smell it one time. So
damn.
Someone is definitely dead in there. And He calls the cops, and sure enough, they're like, "Yep, homeowner's just old and just died in there." So like, he was like, "Well, I guess I'll stop mowing or whatever."
There's no
So
point.
like,
I'm not gonna get paid.
Here's the thing, my man doesn't get paid.
No,
He just like he goes around and is like, "Hey, I mow lawns for my YouTube channel. Can I mow your very overgrown lawn?" And they're like, "Oh, that's so nice." And so he mows and weed eats and edges for him, and he gets paid, I guess, via YouTube.
I mean that's fair, especially since his like content is just always monetizable. There's no reason to demonetize it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell Lawnmower Man to come over to my house and mow my yard.
Yeah, man, I should. I think he's in Texas too.
I got a big yard he can mow. I got a lot of big yards. God. I have this reoccurring dream, speaking about death. I have this reoccurring dream that I will get, because I look young. We're both in our 30s, and Colby has aged, and you can tell from when he was in high school. He does look like a 30-year-old father. And I look the same.
Yeah.
I've gained a little weight, but I'm actually losing weight. Whoop whoop for me.
Yeah.
But I have this reoccurring dream that I will be aging and life will go on, and all of my friends are dying, but I still look the same, and I'm just as old as y'all, but I just never age, and
Damn.
It's very sad. That's like a big fear of mine, that I just won't age.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I know, it's very scary.
Just like, I mean, it's also very funny because it's like everyone ages and you're gonna die of old age probably, or get hit by a car or whatever. But like,
yeah,
man, that is a crazy thing to just be like, oh man, he's going a little crazy, honestly.
Yeah, like no, not like I have this fear, like I'm gonna like say we're all old, and like you look at like your age, like you're old, and then like I'm at your funeral, and then people are gonna think I'm crazy because I still look the same, and they're like, "Oh, were you a friend of the family?" I'm like, "Oh, I went to high school with them," and then they get mad at me and throw me out for being a big liar. Just
get out of here.
Who do you think you are? This isn't a joke. And I'm just like, but I'm like 80 years old, and I'm just still looking like me, and I'm just like, oh man.
Just a sad, young-looking old man.
Yeah,
people are like, "Why don't you understand how to like work our new, whatever 3D virtual phones?" And you're like, "Oh, I don't understand nothing."
I'm like, I got a spot of the Alzheimer's. They're like, what?
Just a little bit of it.
They throw me out. Just get out of here, you big idiot. I'm just like, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean. I'm just an old man. I think that would be weird, like, if I did look the same and I was old, and I end up having to be in an old folks home, too, because I'm like, I'm old, but I'm just like, well, there's no reason to live in my house. I just live in the old folks home, and no one will visit me.
Yeah, and they're like, you can't stay here. You're too young looking. Oh.
Come on.
By the way, that was like one of the worst things. So my mom started living at an assisted living facility. It was like an independent living facility, I guess is like the more correct thing. But like the thing is, she started living at this place, and she was basically the youngest one there. She was 62. She had like a lot of health problems whenever she was toward the end of her life. So that like last year she was, going to doctors a lot and having a lot of issues. And so this is like very clearly a thing that she needed. She a couple of times like fell and needed assistance getting up. So clearly she needed to be here, right? But she got one time someone in the like one of the other people that lived there was like, "What are you doing here? You're too young to live here." And God, I have never wanted to slap an old lady more than in that moment. I was like, what in the fuck do you know?
Yeah, what do you know about fucking people? Say, get out of here, you old fucking hag. Just unbreak her wheelchair and push her down a mountain.
Because, like, my mom was super self-conscious about, like, oh, God, you know, I'm the youngest person here. I'm also, like, you know, I'm single in here. And, you know, I'm, like, it's weird that I don't have someone who's, like, with me. So, like, there was a lot of things like that where it's like, oh, man, you really don't want to... Yeah. Like, saying things like that to someone is kind of fucked up, man.
Yeah, it's a hot button issue.
Yeah. For real. And, like...
Well... You don't know people's... You just don't know people's, like, situation while they're in places. Like, you don't tell them what you think they want to hear because it's something they don't want to hear. Obviously. Mm-hmm. You don't ask a kid, what are you doing in the hospital? You're looking all healthy and he has terminal illnesses. Just... Yeah. Like... They're just, like, coughing. They're like, I have fucking lupus or whatever. They're like, the doctor said I have a month, and they're just like, oh, because then now you're like, oh, okay, man.
Well, I hope you get better.
Like, what can you say? There's stupid things like that. Like, you understand your environment where you're at, and realize there's no right thing to say to people. Like, you can't just spout off things. I learned that a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, like, you can put your foot in your mouth so easily with things like that. And, like, you know, my mom felt really, you know, weird about, you know, her situation. Because, again, you know, her dad or her husband passes away, and then, like, she comes to live with, like, me and my wife, and we were having, like, a great time with her living there. And everything was good. She was, like, really healthy and everything, but she insisted on, like, you know, I want to go live, you know, by myself. I want to give you guys your lives back. And we're like, you're not a burden. You're not a bother. But, like, you know, that's a thing that she was super self-conscious of, is like, I don't want to rely on anybody. I don't want to, like, inconvenience anyone. Yeah. And so, God, like, one of the worst things that I remember is the night before she was going to, like, move out and move into her new place. She was like, can I just stay here? And I was like, I mean, you're about to move, like, tomorrow. All your stuff is in your apartment tomorrow. It, like, I guess we could hire movers to move you in here if you want. And she was like, no, I'm just scared. I'm just nervous about moving in. And, like, she ended up moving in, and she, like, formed a puzzle club and, like, made some friends. Aww. And, like, was talking to a couple of people. And, like, you know, she was about as social as she was more social than I expected that she would be. But she also, like, had a bunch of times where she was just, like, super depressed and, like, didn't want to talk to anyone. And, like, yeah, it's constantly whenever, like, someone like that passes away, you're like, God, could we have done more? What if she had, like, stayed with us? And like, yeah. So that's why whenever I hear her be like, yeah, this person just said that I shouldn't be here because I'm too young, like, very much, like, they don't understand the context of the situation, and they don't understand that my mom is thinking, yeah, you're right, I don't belong here, I'm too young, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't have to rely on anyone to be able to help me, I should just, like, be living by myself. My mom lived by herself until she was, like, 70 something, so, like, yeah, you know, she's got all of those thoughts, and then to hear, like, somebody else back it up, she's like, well, that was fucking... Yeah, that's uncalled for.
That's uncalled for, but you're right. But the thing is, like, your mom had, like, some debilitating issues that caused her that, yeah, she does. I'm not saying she belongs there, but, like, she could have lived with y'all, but she felt self-conscious about it. But yeah, she did require to live in a fucking assisted living facility, no matter what anyone says, and it doesn't matter, like, what anyone says if you go to a place. It's just, yeah, you're there for a reason, and you don't need to be questioned about it. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that goes for basically any place that you're at that, like, yeah, you know, if you need help or whatever, like, having someone be like, oh, I'm surprised to see someone like you here. It's like, fuck you. That like almost sounds like a pickup line. I'm surprised to see someone so handsome here. Just
What's someone like you doing in the gym? You're awful buff. Shut up.
Fucking. That's so funny. God, I never get those. As a matter of fact, this was a couple of years ago, like maybe 5 or so. I was going to the gym with Mike, and we used to go. Me, Mike, Manny, and John in Corpus.
Yeah, John.
And yeah, John. And we used to go to the gym, Gold's Gym, and we went all the time. And of course, you know, we're razzing each other and we're always laughing. And I remember them telling me after we got out, because before we leave, we always do like 30 minutes of cardio, and that's upstairs. And I guess when we were going upstairs, like John and Manny had said something stupid, and they're like, "Yeah, Fee," and like they were like looking at me, and you know, I was laughing, and me and Mike were laughing. And then we go, and then we get out, and they were like, "Dude, when we're going up the stairs, you didn't see that big buff guy? He fucking came and accosted us." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah." He was like, "Don't you ever make fun of anyone in the gym, ever. He's in here trying to do something with himself, and if I see y'all even make fun of him once, you're gonna have to answer to me." And I'm like, "Damn." I was like, I don't need protection. I'm like, "What? Did you tell him that we're all friends?" Or, and they were like, "Dude, we tried. He wouldn't let us talk."
God, like, that's because, like, listen, I get there's so many times where like you read an account like that on the internet where it's like, "I just got tired of it, and you know, this guy's trying to better himself, and fucking I'm gonna go and I'm gonna stick up for him, and I was the hero of the gym." Everybody clapped, and like those stories sound great on the internet, but like in reality, it's so easy to just assume a bunch of shit about a situation, and then if he had let them talk and they were like, "Yeah, he's our friend. Like we like, of course, we're making like we're leaving together. It's fine."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, still."
If you ever talk shit about anyone else in the gym,
yeah, I'm gonna wait outside, and if I fucking hear you, if I hear you say anything out there, you're dead.
That's so stupid. Like, obviously, I don't need protecting. Like, I'm not a damsel in distress. Like, so what if someone says some shit? I don't care. I obviously, if they come to my face and fucking 80s movie style bully me and just like, "Oh, what, trying to lose weight, eh, fatty?" Oh, fucking slap the barbell out of my hand. Like, of course, I'm not gonna just sit there and take it, but I'm not gonna, I can defend myself. I don't need, like, other people, like, drop their stuff and walk behind them and, like, "What'd you say?" Fucking.
Yeah. just picking people up like, "Hey, say that again to my face."
Yeah. Why don't you turn around and say it to my face, and they fucking flex. Oh, bet you're not man enough. Ooh, brother. Because it's fucking Hulk Hogan. Do it. Oh, I bet you won't talk to my face like that. Ooh, yeah.
They're like, "Oh, shit, I didn't know Macho Man was here, damn.
I didn't know you were friends with Macho Man."
Damn, V.
You're
like, "Yeah, you get him, sick him."
"It's okay, Fee. I always got your back. I'm the cream." Just fucking... I fucking love Macho Man. We already talked about it, but I fucking love Macho Man.
He's so good.
He's so good. But you know, enough about that. We wanted to talk about like anime and stuff 45 minutes into the podcast. Colby, you wanted to talk about something.
Oh yes, okay. So all right. So one of the largest, it is the largest anime podcast right now is the Trash Taste podcast. And yeah, so we're both like fans of like, I rarely ever listen to the full podcast, but I'll listen to clips and like I'll watch some of their streams and stuff.
I watch Giga all the time.
Yeah, he's actually like he just started streaming, but he's actually surprisingly really good at it. It's very weird. But yeah, so they appeared at a con. This is the first time that they have appeared at a con since Trash Taste became a thing and became so popular, because Trash Taste was started during the pandemic, and like it got really popular during that time. Couldn't leave Japan. and now they're all out. They're in the UK for a wedding, and so they're at this con. Well, as part of this, they're like doing this panel at this con, and some guy who looks like KSI, but like busted as KSI, runs up on the stage and is like he sits down on the couch with like one of them and is like,
the fuck?
Just talking shit for a few seconds and like trying to make jokes or whatever, and then he gets up and he like sprints out of the area, probably because someone was coming to like get him. Yeah. And that's the thing is like, can you imagine? Because like I have done one panel before that was like a podcast, like gaming type thing, and at that panel we like had like a video game set up and like everybody was really nice and cool. Yeah, you were there. Everybody was really nice. Like it was cool. Yeah. And can you imagine your first panel, like as like a big sensation? You have like, this place is filled, like it's a theater, it's a big production, and then someone violates the space by jumping up on the stage with you, like.
Yeah.
From that point onward, that's like, well, I gotta get fucking security now. Like, that's the second that you do that, you're like, for every event, we have to have like 2 people that are just there to bounce people.
Yeah, because like from now on, you're just like, well, now we can't just be cool and open with everyone. Now we have to have like people watching, and now we have to have like a secret signal. That really sucks.
Yeah, because that's like. At the same place where we did I did my first panel, Ego Raptor had a panel, and somebody brought him banana bread. By the way, this is also before Game Grumps, so this was in the period between like Flash animations were really big, and then whenever like Let's Play started up and Ego Raptor got really
Are you sure it was banana bread and not pound cake?
Oh yeah, it was pound cake. You're right. That's what it was. So yeah, they bring him this pound cake. And he's on stage and he's like, I really want to eat this, but I know that it's a bad idea to like accept things from strangers. Yeah. Like, you know, just because like people, you know, you go to a panel and you're like, I made this shirt for you. You fucking throw a t-shirt up there. That's fine. Like they can take it home, throw it in the garbage. Who cares? But to give a food item, an item that is supposed to be ingested, like, you could just die from that on stage.
Yeah, you don't know what they put in there. Like, even if it is innocent and they did nothing but just make you straight up pound cake, again, you don't know what they did from right when they started making it to wrapping it up to bringing it to you. There's too many unknown variables, and especially if they seem nice, but you don't know like what their intention is.
Yeah, exactly. Like they showed up to your panel and it's like, well, anybody could have showed up to the panel. It could be somebody that, like, I don't know, accused me of stealing ideas from them on Newgrounds 2 years ago, and I made fun of them, and everybody laughed them off the internet, and they're like, I'm gonna fucking show him, kill him, just with this poison pound cake or some shit. Like,
yeah, because everyone was giving him pound cakes because he just made the fucking Blanca Ryu, like, 10-second flash of, like... Oh, would you like some pound cake? And Ryu would like some pound cake.
It was very good.
It was very good. I think, didn't you have a shirt of that? Because we met Ego Raptor that day.
We did. That's where your nickname Fists showed up. Yeah.
Hell yeah! Because he, I don't know if he asked for my name or we just told him, but that's where that nickname came from.
He just came up with his name Fists out of nowhere. Like, no one had ever heard him say this combination of words before that time. Like, he didn't run us by it like, hey, it'll be really funny when Ego Raptor asks what my name is. I'm going to tell him my name is Fists. That was the first, like, we always start off the podcast and Fee gives himself a nickname. That was the first time Fee did that.
Dude, yeah, it wasn't going to be a thing, but then I just decided it was going to be a thing. I didn't tell Colby I was going to do it. I just did it.
Mm-hmm. And the first time we had heard it, everybody turned and was like, what?
Yeah, and then we took a picture with our fucking fists out in the air. Fucking
funniest thing.
It was great. And
that was very good.
that we both got shirts from there.
Yeah.
And
It was
that
a good
wasn't
time.
even, yeah, this is not even the first time I met him. I've met him like 2 other times after that.
Really?
Or I guess that was the first time. It was always at San Japan I met him. He always had
yeah.
he always had the 2 years after that, like he had a booth or he was doing something. And then I don't think he went to San Japan ever again.
Yeah, I feel like once you get really popular for Game Grumps, you're like, well, now I got to take this on the road.
Yeah, no shit.
Now they do like Game Grumps Live.
Even though I could have seen him at fucking South by Southwest, but my girlfriend at the time was being an asshole. It was a free event. I was like, dude, my favorite, like some of my favorite YouTubers at the time, them and Twerp, TWRP, are putting on a free concert, and it's today. I'm like, can we go? We got nothing better else to do. And she was like, oh, I don't want to get caught in traffic. I'm like, we can get like a ride over there. I'm like, let's just go. And she's like, oh, I just want to stay in. I'm like, I didn't want to argue, so I was like, okay.
Can you stay in and I'll go by myself?
Oh, God forbid I ever did that. God forbid. Just she was one of those girls. She wasn't into pop culture like I was. She wasn't into like anime. She had no idea video games were, but it was one of my first serious relationships. So I was kind of just trying to be like, okay, well, if you're not in, that's cool, but I am, and that's fine. And that was one of those things where I was like really fucking down, and I could have gone by myself, but I didn't want an argument. So
Yep.
I just don't want to do. I just don't let. If you're ever in a relationship and someone's like that bad where they won't like be like, yeah, we can go for a little bit, or we can like if you're willing to do something and accommodate everyone and make sure everyone's having a good time, like don't get with someone that is just negative all the time and just bad, like just disavows anything like you wanted. Like if you're like, oh, there's this thing and I want to go and I'll save up money and we can both go, and if they're just like no and you can't even go by yourself, then that's no one you want to be with.
Yeah, that's the honestly the worst thing, because like you can like I understand. For me, I have a real problem with like going to restaurants to go eat by myself. So I will be like, listen, if you don't go with me, I can't go because I'm too embarrassed. But like for anything else, if it's like, hey, I want to go do this thing, and my wife has like no interest in it, then they don't go. It's the same thing for my wife. If my wife is like, hey, I'm going to go over to this person's house and we're going to like do this activity together, I'm like, great, have fun. I'm staying here and doing whatever it is I want to do.
Yeah. Like I remember that girlfriend specifically got mad when we lived in Portland. So we lived in Portland and my cousin, the one that you got to fight with, lived down the street with me, and he was like, hey man, we're gonna play some games and have a few drinks. Why don't you come over? I'm barbecuing. I was like, yeah. And I asked her, I was like, hey, you want to go? He invited you. And she was like, no, I'm not. And she was like, you can go. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
And so I go there for a few hours, and then she calls me at like 10, and she's like, where are you? Why aren't you home yet? I'm like, I'm down the street. I'm like, literally, I'm like, I could walk home right now. And she's like, are you drinking? I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm not drunk. I'm like, I could drive home. I'm like, it's a few blocks away, literally like 3 blocks away. I'm like, I will be home in like another hour or two. And she's like, that's too late. You need to come home. And I was like,
well, why is it too late?
I don't know. I didn't have to work. I did. It was my days off. I didn't have to work. And God forbid, I was just like, fuck. So, like, I had to make a decision now. I'm like, leave now and have her be a little mad, or go home in 2 hours and have her big mad. So, I was just like, guys, I'm like, I hate to do this, but I gotta go. And they were just like, oh, and they were just like, man, they're like, man, what a bitch, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, I was like, I know, whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like, so that's why I say don't. It doesn't matter if like your partner isn't into like some of your things, but don't find someone where like y'all have no common interests other
Mm-hmm.
other than like a TV show or like that y'all both have cars and a job. Find someone that has your like very common interests and is like down to go with you places and you're down to go with them places,
Mm-hmm.
because other if you don't, it's going to be a nightmare. And that's from experience, and I've never talked or dated to anyone like that again, although my last ex turned out to be very unstable.
Yeah. Also very true. Uh, and
And we
the worst thing is like for people like that, for people that truly are like not either like not mature enough to be in a relationship or like somewhere on that spectrum where you're like, I don't know, they seem like mostly okay, but then it's always like one thing
yeah.
like a month or two into the relationship where you have a disagreement and then they have this reaction where you go, what the fuck? That was weird.
Yeah, you're
I
like,
guess, I don't know, maybe you've got like a weird thing. You had a bad day or something. I don't know. And then like that starts to become more and more common and you're just kind of used to it. And then you're like, this,
huh,
this
yeah.
is, I don't know, this is
This
mostly
doesn't.
fine. And then after you break up, you're like, none of that was okay, actually. What the fuck?
Yeah, it only takes like you getting away from that person and then being like, that was never good. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why I was okay at the time, but like if you're dating someone at the time, you just kind of accept things. You just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, you're like, okay, I mean, this should be fine. I mean, but then you leave them and you're like, no, no one should act like that, like ever. Like,
Yeah.
why? It only takes you getting away from them to realize that people shouldn't act. I don't want to say like crazy, but like unhinged, like
Yeah.
for no reason. Like if you know like you have something, like tell the people. Don't let an outburst be the first time like your partner figures out that something's wrong.
Yeah, yeah, because like I don't know. Again, if you're having like if you're in a relationship with someone and they're like very upfront with like, yeah, I may have some issues with the like I don't know, like I've got like separation anxiety or I've got I have this thing and like I'm really actively trying to work on it. Like I'm upfront about like what's going on. You're like, oh, well, I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah,
That's good. But like as you get like deeper into a relationship to be like no like the ex before my wife um
yeah.
she like there were so many times where I was like, oh, we should break up. Like this is bad.
This
And
shouldn't be.
yeah, like one of the first times was like we were long distance for a very long time, and I was like we were on AOL Instant Messenger just talking. That gives you a time frame, I guess. Like late 2000s.
Yeah.
And so we're talking, and then at one point she just said like not out of nowhere because it was related, but this was a weird boast, and I was like, that's odd. She was like, yeah, I'm very good at manipulating people. If I wanted to manipulate you, I could, and you would never know it. And
Oh.
I read that, and I went, why would you fucking say that?
Well,
That's a
now
really
I'm.
weird thing to say to me.
Yeah. Well, now I'm very suspicious of anything you tell me.
Yeah, so like that happened, and like as time went on, there were just more and more things where it was like I opened
Like,
up, I lent her my laptop one time, um, and then she came back with it, and it had died, and I was like, oh, that's fine. I've got to take it with me to do a presentation at this place. So I took my laptop with me. I plugged it in and I turned it on because I was like, well, I got to get ready for this thing. And I guess it had died while she was working on it. And the last window that she had open was like, how do you read someone's aim logs on Windows XP? And I was like, this bitch is trying to read my aim logs, trying to fucking catch me on some cheating shit right now.
Yeah. Which wasn't the case.
Which was not the case. Like, and the reason why she had this paranoia is she, like, I had gone up to, like, see her graduate for the weekend. While I was up there, my ex sent me an email that was like, hey, blah, 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 like, how are you doing? And we emailed back and forth a couple times, and she was like, hey, here's a picture of me in my uniform, because she went into the military, and she's like, do you like girls in uniforms? And I was like, yeah, you look really good in it. Which, like, obviously she's trying to flirt with me, and I'm like, not actively stopping.
You're being neutral. That's pretty neutral.
That's about as untame as things got. Well, so I made the mistake of logging into my email so that I could print off my boarding pass to fly back. And then I left my email logged in because I was like, why would I? I trust this person. Yeah. And of course she went through my emails and found those emails and went, I can't fucking believe you. And you're cheating on me. And it was that. And also the other thing is, that, like, our small town, like, cell phone coverage is spotty. There are places where, like, it's fine, but then there are places like my house where if you were inside of my house, the phones just don't work. Like, texting can work, but you can't have a phone conversation. Like, you'll get batches of texts. You can't look up anything on the internet using, like, your cell phone because it just doesn't load in my house. That's just how that house was. We were just in some weird cell phone dead zone, right? And so me and my girlfriend at the time were living together, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go see my parents. So, like, again, you could text me, but if you call me, it won't work. So you can call my house phone. It's fine. And she was just convinced that I was, like, going somewhere else to cheat on her, and that's why I couldn't talk on the phone. And it was just things like that pile up, and I, like, eventually getting out of it, I'm like, oh, you're like a really paranoid person, and, like, a really kind of self-centered, everybody is out to get me narcissist type person who, like, has, like, paranoia and delusions of grandeur in that way that you're like, not that, like, I'm great and everybody loves me, more like everybody else is out to sabotage and absolutely fuck me out of getting what I want. And it's like, no one thinks about you. Yeah. No one thinks about you. Just fucking shut up.
Yeah. I don't think she really cared for me or Mike.
No, she didn't. In fact, you guys came up for my birthday. The time you came up to Austin for my birthday, we'd been living together for about 6 months at that point, and we went to go play laser tag, right?
Yeah.
So we did laser tag, and then afterward we get out, and you and Mike were like, yeah, I don't know, laser tag's kind of expensive around here. And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll pay for another round. And legitimately, while we were waiting in line, she pulled me aside and was like, they are just using you for your money, and you know that. Like, what assholes to come up for your birthday and expect you to pay for them to do things? And I was like, hey, like, I get paid a lot more than they do. Like, it's fine. If I wasn't fine with it, I wouldn't pay for them. So, like, stop.
And
it was just a weird thing where she's like, yeah, these guys are coming up here to fuck you out of all your money.
I think we were even against it for a little while until, like, you convinced us.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you were like, no, it's fine. We'll just, like, we can just go back to your place. I was like, no, I really want to play more laser tag. Like, yeah, and she was just so convinced that she was like, they like, of course you're gonna pay for things, of course you're gonna pay for them to have dinner, and of course blah blah, and what the fuck are they doing? And I'm like, they're here. They drove for fucking like 2.5 hours to come up here. Shut up.
And that's like never, like, that was never the case. Like, I don't think I've asked you for money, like, at all.
No.
Never.
You have indirectly in that you're like, oh man, I don't have enough money to pay for dinner, and then I leave you in a Chili's for fucking 30 minutes while Mike is like, dude, I do not have the money to pay for this man's food, and I'm like, then he better call someone because I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I think I would be like $5 short, and then Mike would have to put up $5 for me, and Colby being like, oh well. Fucking run out of where we're at.
Because there have been a couple of times where like we'd gone to like the Chinese food buffet and he's like, dude, I forgot my wallet, or like, I didn't bring my money. Sorry, can you like, I'll pay you back later. Can you pay? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then like he doesn't pay, or like we forget or whatever. And so like it got to the point where I was like, no, fuck that. And then I finally got a job and was like, okay, well, it's really silly to be doing that now. Like.
Yeah, and the thing about that, back in the day, I made like $200 every 2 weeks, and we ate out all the fucking time. I just didn't have money.
Yeah, it was just like $16 here, $10 there, just like, oh, we're going to go to Whataburger. Yeah, we're going to go to the Chinese food place. Oh, we're going to go buy fucking, Chili's or whatever. Like, it was always just like a couple of things here and there. And I had money, like, at that time, because that was after we graduated, but before I graduated from college, I think I had money from my internship that I was like burning through. So like I had made a bunch of money over my internship, and that was the spending money that I had for like the next year. And so it feels like, oh, dude, I don't have enough money to pay for my Chili's. Fucking, I'm like, I'm not paying $30. Fuck you.
But like that's like I can afford things now, so. And even when I can't, I'm always against people offering up money for me until like.
Yeah, you're also always very upfront about it. You're like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. Now I've learned. I'm like, no, if I can't do that, I just can't do it. I can't afford it, and I'm fine. I'm like, you go. I'll get something cheaper. I'm like, it's not even a big deal. Well, as a kid, I didn't have that mindset, so it's so funny to think. But God, like it's way different. Like I didn't realize it, but like I have matured in that sense. So that's, I don't know. That's funny. Like to think that I would want your money. We were always at your fucking mansion, and your parents always just showered us with food and like drinks. And, like, we never asked for it. They just forced it on us.
Yeah, my parents were, like, extremely, like, oh, we've got too much X. Eat X. Like, please take home some of this.
Yeah, like, I remember one Halloween they were just like, no one came and got this candy. Here's, like, 3 bags of candy for your sister and you. I was like, okay. I was like, don't tell me twice. Or fucking
I mean, and like this is gonna sound real bad, but like, so we at one point one of my nieces was selling things not for like Girl Scouts, not like Girl Scout cookies, but it was like something like that, and so like we ended up buying like it was something like that, where we bought sodas from her, and so we bought like. God, I don't know, like 120 sodas,
Jesus.
like these not cans either, like they were all like 20-ounce bottles. So we bought all these sodas from her, and she's up in Midland, we're down in South Texas, and like that drive is like 8 hours long. So they finally come and like give us these sodas, and it's been like 6 months. So we get these sodas, and they're all like expired by like a month or whatever. And so we're like, well, I guess we're not drinking these. And they just sat there for a while until my parents were like, why don't you ask if Fee wants them? I was like, okay. I was like, hey, Fee, do you want these expired sodas? They're not good. You were
Hell
like, yeah, hell yeah, we do. And I was like, oh, okay. My parents were like so embarrassed. They were like, God, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that these are expired, but like, blah, blah. And you were like, I don't care. They taste fine. Like, okay.
They were a little flat, but I mean, dude, free soda.
Yeah, free soda, dude.
I could never turn down like a free whatever. Like, but now, like nowadays, I'm just like, I mean, are you sure? Like, I'm more reserved rather than back in the day. I'm just like, fuck yeah. And then I tell my parents, I'm like, dude, they just gave us all this fucking free shit for like, because the X they couldn't do reason. And my parents were like, oh, that's so nice of them. And I'm just like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But like I said, that's not why we were friends. I didn't hear like on the fucking I didn't hear on the tree fucking branch that you were just always fucking giving shit out, and I was like, I gotta get me some of that action. Because the first time I met y'all, I didn't really care for y'all because y'all were like very what's it called? Kind of in like more in your face than I was at that period of time. Like y'all were a little bit
for sure
aggressive, and then I didn't care for it until I got into high school, and then I'm like, oh, this is what like friends are supposed to be, because like the friends I was with, my cousin and his group of friends, were very mean spirited. They were like really mean spirited, but not in like a nice way, like when we were together, but like in a mean way. And I was just like, oh, I'm like, this is friendship. And I got my own friends. And I left them, and actually at one point, I don't know if I told you this, I was hanging out with y'all a lot, and I stopped going and hanging with them until like this one time that I decided to hang with them, and they're like, you've been hanging around with those guys a lot, and they're like, you gotta make a decision, who do you want to hang out with more? You gotta only have one set of friends. I'm like, well,
oh my
them.
God.
Yeah, I was like, well, them. And they're like, oh. And like,
shit, I didn't expect that.
So like that was that, and then like we hung out like on and off, but like I think they just realized that I didn't want to hang out with them that much anymore. But it was like so fun. Like I've never had that question asked to me before, even after any time. So like it was funny, even y'all, but I didn't hang out with anyone else but y'all. But like, y'all would never be like, who are those other fucking friends y'all are with? It's them or us. Like, it was never like that.
That's a rough one to do too. Because like, man, it's like, number one, anybody that makes you do that, like proposes that question to you, the answer should always be whatever not them is. Yeah. Because like no one wants to enter an exclusivity contract with someone. Like you can pick either them or me. Fucking always them then.
Yeah. It'd be like, okay, them. I'm already spending all my time with them. I mean, I guess now I have more free time. Just fucking
yeah.
It's so fucking funny. But like I kind of felt bad, but then I didn't. I'm like, I don't really like hanging with them that much. I mean, they're fine, but I don't get the same, I guess, fucking enjoyment when I hang out with them because they're always doing some stupid shit. So
yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's always weird to like have a couple of different groups of friends because you're like, oh yeah, this group of friends does things like this, and this other group of friends does things this other way, and like, it's anytime you like cross those two things, it's like, well, like,
yeah. I'm like, and you can't bring them together because like, y'all, we couldn't get along with them the same way that y'all got along with me, because like, I think we've talked about Pete before. And he was like very unhinged and like ADHD driven, like crazy.
Extremely, yeah.
Yeah, and my cousin was a very mean-spirited young man, and so it wasn't gonna work. It just wasn't gonna work. Especially because like they started drinking at a young age, like 16 or so. And they always wanted me to go over and drink. And I did one time, and I felt terrible the next day. And I never wanted to do it again. Whereas, like, we didn't start drinking until, like, I was 18. And Mike had brought me, and he didn't, like, make me drink straight tequila and like, fucking Fireball. Like, he was just like, have a few beers. And, of course I threw up a few times. But that's neither here nor there. But
it's not a good situation to be in to like realize, oh, this group of friends kind of sucks. Like I was hanging out with a few guys that were like kind of, I guess, sort of into like the punk subculture. And like, it was fun to hang out with them for a while. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, you guys just like kind of want to smoke cigarettes and do nothing. And like, you don't want to play video games. They watched Dragon Ball Z. That was about it. But like, I was like, okay, obviously like, there are friends that like I would like to hang out with more than this. Cause there was like, we were hanging out together. And then at one point, one of them was like, we're going to get t-shirts made. And so like, we're going to come by your house and like grab $20 for this t-shirt. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. And so they came by, I gave them $20, never heard from it about it again. Like, obviously they just wanted $20 that day. I was like, shit, man.
What? Because I mean, even when we were hanging out, we would talk about, be like, oh, we want to make shirts, but we never did it. But we always talked about it. But I don't think I could. I wasn't driving at that time. I didn't know anything about anything. The internet wasn't a thing I used a lot, so I didn't know where to get them made. I'd have to rely on you or Mike to find some place, and then me be like, okay, well, I have money now. So that's
yeah.
And I've gone through a couple of friend groups that just weren't a fit for me. Like my first friends I ever made, was a kid who lived a block away from me, and another kid that lived down the street, and we were all cool. One of them didn't like playing games as much as we all did, as me and my other friend did. Me and my other friend liked playing Pokemon, and we liked playing games on the Super Nintendo and the 64, and we did that a lot. But then they would be like, "Hey, let's go fucking throw the football around," and I'm not a sports guy, dude. I didn't watch sports, and both of them watched like football games and baseball. And they both liked playing it, and I did it because I didn't like really know anyone else, and I could tell that they were more friends than with me, because I didn't like to go, and I wanted to play with toys, and I wanted to play with games, and they wanted to just be outside, and I'm like, oh, and that's when I started hanging out with my cousin and Pete and them, because they played, like, we would stay up all night just playing, like, Phantasy Star Online, or fucking Super Mario Kart, or Mario Kart Double Dash at that point. And, I was like, oh, this is a good time. But then as we grew older, it started progressing to, I've got a car, let's go fucking make mischief. And I'm like, can't we just play games more? And
they're like, hey, let's go drive and, like, throw eggs at people's houses.
Dude,
you're like,
oh my
what
God.
About not?
You joke about that, but I remember one time in Portland, I remember, I'm not trying to put like Pete on blast, but I had like a parfait that
Pete fucking killed a guy.
He fucking stabbed someone and laughed, and I didn't know what to do. I had a parfait I was eating, and I finished it, and I was in the back of the car, and I don't know why, but I think Roger was there too. And they were like, what if we all pee in this cup and throw it on a car? And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And he's like,
that seems bad.
Yeah. And like, so we drove around in like some of the nice part of Portland. And sure enough, he peed in the cup and threw it on a car. And I was like, why would you do that? And like, everyone was laughing. And I'm just like, I'm like, can we go back home? I'm like, I don't want to be here.
Oh, God. Has anybody seen us? Or write down this license plate?
Yeah, no shit. Like, I was, like, paranoid. I was like, I don't like being out, like, past dark and just doing shit like this. I'm like, I don't like doing this. And, then I met y'all guys, and y'all guys didn't like doing that. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is great. Y'all just want to play fucking Wii Bowling and Soul Calibur. I'm like, this is
Hell
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, this is much better.
I'm like,
yeah, like, I don't know. So as far as like sports stuff goes, like throwing a football around is only good as an activity to just be hanging out and bullshitting, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't give a shit about like throwing the football the farthest or the fastest or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's just like being like, oh yeah, fucking, what do you think about this person? Or like, yeah, this girl said this thing to me. Like,
Yeah, and
that's what that activity's for.
Mike would like to throw the football, but we wouldn't. We would just go out in front of his house and talk and throw the ball, or we would go to like the fucking junior high lot and throw the ball and just talk shit. And then after like 30 minutes, it'd be like, let's go grab a bite to eat.
Yeah.
So like that's the kind of like it was almost like the room type football where like you're just throwing the ball and fucking shooting the shit. But anything more than that, I just was not down for. I'm not an athletic person, and I never have been. And my dad was very upset that when he realized that I wasn't.
Yeah, I can't imagine if you like really expect that your kid is going to be one way and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that was a fantasy that I had. It's not actually true.
Of course, like you live in South Texas, and like if you're from like a Hispanic family, you want your kid to play sports. Like that's the thing. Your kid playing sports and being good, but I was neither. Not.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that you're like, yeah, especially if you're working or like you grew up in an area and then you still live in that area, you're like, oh yeah, I've got a lot of memories tied to high school, and like I remember when I was like on the football team and this is how my memories were, and now you're going to the same school, and like the temptation to be like, you should do the same things that I did must be extremely high.
Yeah. But the thing is, I didn't. And I didn't. My dad wanted me to go to the Army, but I had asthma, so I couldn't. He wanted me to be in sports. I didn't want to, except for football for a little while, because I liked playing football until I realized, oh, I grew up with the people that were good at sports, so they were always playing them and not me. And also the coaches were friends with all their dads. And they knew my dad was just a fucking angry, mean person, but he would never show up to the games. So this is the thing. My dad is funny. Because my sister was in sports. He wouldn't show up and sit in the stands, but he would sit outside and watch them from the car, from the outside looking in. And that was always good enough for him. And we all, like, understood that. But the thing is, I just wasn't that guy. And my dad, I guess, realized that very early on and after junior high, and they're like, oh, well, they're not going to play him, and he doesn't, like, really like this, so I guess why keep him in? So,
man, yeah. God, that resonates real hard, because, like, I was in soccer for all of, like, 3 weeks, and then my parents were like, oh, you don't want to be here, do you? I don't think I ever even played a game. Like, I went to soccer practice, and then at some point I was like, I actually just want to watch Rugrats. And my parents were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like, and I think my dad realized that too, because my dad would be watching the game, and he'd be like, hey, I'm watching the game, want to watch? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I got a lot of games to play, or I got a lot of things to do. But my brother was always there with them, so, like, that was fine.
And you're like, yeah, just ask Caesar. Anyway, bye.
Like,
I mean, I can imagine that, like, you're out there playing a game, like you're in, like, whatever, Pee-wee football or, like, doing flag football or whatever, and your dad's like, oh, yeah, like whenever you did that thing, and you're like, what are you talking about? I wasn't even paying attention.
I just did what the coach told me to do. I don't know what. And here's the thing about Pee-wee football. Like, Pee-wee football and, like, Little League, there is more than one team in each town. So the odds of you playing is more. But once you get into school, onto a school team, they're going to pick the best players they can. And they won't pick you. And especially, like, if the people, like, and I don't blame the people that they picked, because they grew up in an athletic family, and like some of their dads were coaches, so of course they did. And I wasn't, even though my dad had me go and practice outside with them, and I just wasn't at that level because I wouldn't do it all the time. I didn't live that life.
I'm right there with you. Like, this is all resonating very much with me.
And I remember this one time, it was so fucking funny. My dad was trying to teach me to hit correctly, and we had set up like a tarp on the tree in our empty lot, and it was like a tee, the tee that to set up where the ball was gonna be, and you would just hit it. And my my dad, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna show you how to hit it. You stand like this, put the bat like this, and then you hit it." So he gets in a stance and he shows me, but I guess the thing was adjusted to me, so he had to swing lower. But he swung too low and hit the tee in the middle and fucking destroyed it.
Oh my god!
And he was like, "I guess we'll do this again later," because it just wasn't. It wouldn't go back together. And I was like, "Okay." He's like, "Let's just throw the ball." And I was like, "Okay."
Okay, sounds good.
Fucking, oh shit, that's so fucking funny. But yeah, I still don't watch football, and I'm pretty okay with that. And I don't know what to say when like people are talking about football at work and they ask me, and I'm like, I don't watch football, and like they gave me that look like, you live in fucking South Texas and you don't watch football? Because football in Texas is serious. Mm-hmm. So like for you to be like, I'm just not a sports guy, and they're like, basketball or baseball? I'm like, I'll go watch them if someone gives me like a free ticket, but I won't purposely do it. So
yeah, it's like a way of life down there. Like, people talk about like high school football being like really big in Texas, but there are definitely places where like, especially larger schools, I feel like larger schools, it's not as big a deal to be like, oh, it's Friday night, I guess we're all gonna go watch fucking high school football. Yeah. But like, it definitely is like a permeating culture in most places, but especially in like small towns, because it's like, that's the thing to do on a Friday night. There's like nothing else to do. And like, at the very least, you know that like of the kid, there's, you know, what is it, 24 kids on a football team.
Dude, I don't
so
know.
You have like 24 families up in the stands, plus like the old timers that like, yeah, they're friends, your old timers that like haven't left the city, and like teachers and like whoever else, like, and so it's a big like social get together, and like it honestly isn't really so much about the football even at that point, but no, like
it's just that like the camaraderie.
That means that it's like basically a part of being like a citizen in this town is like, oh, what do you mean you don't watch football?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we were just screaming our fucking lungs out on the stands for the kids at the football team. And where were you? I was like, at home or at work, probably. I'm like, it's not a. I'm like, I don't get excited. I'm like, I don't know those people. But like, my sister, like, she's out of school, and she will go to the football games for her boyfriend's, I guess, brother. And I think he plays. I'm not sure, but she'll go and watch. And my nephews, they are in football and they play, and she'll go watch them. And they don't even ask me anymore because I'll say no. I'll just and they just learn. They're like, he's not gonna go. And my mom doesn't.
Like, straight up no.
And
don't ask.
My mom's at the age already where she's like, I don't want to go. She's like, there's no reason for me to go. I work and I like all day. I don't want to go. But like, I don't know how like these people have the energy to just go. And it's hot, dude. Like, I don't know if y'all have ever, like, people, not you, Kobe, but like be in stands outside in the heat and it's humid, and there's just these giant fucking fog lights, and they're just blistering heat on everything because it's got to be bright enough to light up the field. And there are several. Yeah. It's hot, dude. And then people sitting close to each other, like in stands. It's hot, dude, and it's gross.
And especially like football season starts like now, right? So like,
Maybe?
or I guess football season usually starts like in the summer. I mean, so like it'll start in like August, September. So like the last game of the season is like temperate, but for the first the first huge batch of games is just like disgusting. Everybody is disgusting.
So, just don't just don't do it. Just if you're a sports guy, that's fine. It's pretty much the same as like anime culture, but more sports themed, which is funny because I can watch a sports anime and be fine, but I can't watch it in real life because anime is very exaggerated and like it's entertaining and there's always like a different plot line, but in real life you don't know what's going on.
And you get like the backstory. So like in anime, it's like, oh, this guy, his older brother used to play this sport and was really good, and so like everybody's comparing him to his older brother, but he's not as good and he's not confident, and then oh, actually turns out he is really good, but in this other way, and you're like, wow, crazy.
It turns out he has the fucking fighting spirit of what, like Wasashi or whoever, and it's in his body, and whenever he grabs the ball, he fucking, I don't know, dude, like, just like, what the fuck? But that's
because like, and things are interesting as well. Like, because there are things like, there are sports anime out there like Haikyuu is one of them, where it's like no one ever gets like a major power up, or like no one uses magic or whatever. Like, it's a sports anime, and it's not like his aura is so overwhelming. It's just like, wow, the skill difference is crazy, or like, here's how you jump higher, or here's this, like, this guy has this, like, ability, like, these reflexes that are really good, and it's never, like, crazy magic, which is nice.
Well, that's kind of like, does Slam Dunk do that? I don't think so. I've never seen
I don't think so either.
And then there's also that football anime. I forget what it's called.
Is it iShield 21?
iShield 21, but they don't have like special powers. The main character who's like the running back, he just is so small that he's learned to get through crowds like in a way that a football player would dodge football player, and he's really fast. And they were like, you would be perfect for this fucking football team. And he's like, but I don't want to play football. Well, here's the thing. People don't have to know that you're playing football. We'll put this eye shield on you, so you're like our secret weapon. And, like, there's that. And then my favorite...
Yeah, and that's, like, a good plot. That's cool.
Yeah, my favorite sports anime of all time, Hajime no Ippo, The Fighting.
Mm-hmm.
It is so fucking good. It's about this little kid... Not little kid, but, like, this, I think, 16-year-old kid in high school. And he gets bullied every day. He's not special. Like, people barely know he exists. And he's just like, I want friends, and I want to do all this. He's like, but I'm no good at anything. My dad passed away, so now I have to help my mom. She runs a fishing business where she drives a boat out with fishermen, and they do that. So, without knowing, he's already had like a strength endurance where he has to carry the equipment, and he has to balance on the boat. So, unbeknownst to him, he's already had some sort of training that he could apply to boxing, but he doesn't like physical altercation because all he did was get bullied. Well, until one day where bullies caught him after school and they're chasing him and they catch him and they're like ragging him hard and they're like punching him, and a boxer happens to be doing road work and catches him. And he's like, hey, if you can hit me, then you can beat this kid up. And they're like, fucking bancho bullies. They're like, oh yeah, old man, well, watch us. And they all come at him, and without like raising his fist, like he's just sidestepping him and dodging him, making him trip. And then they're like, oh man, we gotta get out of here. And then he's like,
oh, beans.
And the guy's like,
cheese it.
To Ippo, he's like, you gotta learn to protect yourself. And how about you come with me to the boxing gym and I'll show you. And he's like, I want you to hit the punching bag. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I've never thrown a punch. And like, he hits it really weak. And he's like, oh, your stance is all wrong. And he shows him how to stance and throw a proper punch. And he fucking whales the bag and breaks all the skin on his knuckles because he's never hit at like full strength before. And he's just like, oh, wow, I did that? And the guy's like, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest boxer of all time. And it basically, the show goes from him not knowing anything and learning the ropes, and you're there with him, to becoming the featherweight title champion and having to defend himself, and him just training. It's so good. And him overcoming obstacles. It is so good. It's so good.
Yeah, the thing is, as long as the characters are really compelling, it honestly doesn't really matter what they're doing, because there's also an anime that's animated by the same studio that does Haikyuu, which, by the way, is, I think, my favorite sports anime.
Never seen
called
it.
Run with the Wind, and it's just about running. Like it's about like running and training to do like endurance running for this, like there's some like annual run that's like around a mountain or some shit. Like I'm not positive on what the concept here is, because a friend of mine is into it and she was like, oh, you know, the running thing is happening soon. And I was like, oh, the running thing. Yes.
Yes.
But like it's based off this anime, and like she shared like clips and stuff from it. And one person is like, why do you run? If it's to get places faster, there are cars and bikes for that, stupid. Like, we run for something else, like to prove that we're like better and like strength train. Fucking like goes on this like romantic thing about like running, and it's without any context. You're like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. But with that context, you're like, you fucking tell him, man. Hell yeah,
You
running's
get him.
cool. you get him.
God. Sports anime will do that to you. Like, you'll be watching it and you get into it and you're like, man, I want to do that thing. But then you realize, oh no, I probably don't want to.
Yeah, because like at the very least, Haikyuu is pretty good about that. Because there's one arc where they're like, you know, they're this team that has like three of them are seniors and they're like about to graduate. This is their last chance, and they're pretty good at volleyball. But then they've got like these two, you know, freshmen that are there, and they're both pretty good at volleyball, but either like one of them isn't good at teamwork and the other one is not like very professional yet. He just has like good reflexes and stuff. And so like they're like a team that's still trying to gel, and they go to this like training thing with a bunch of other high schools, and they're just fucking losing like everything. Every like practice match they just lose. And when they lose, they have to like run around the whole volleyball court, and like once you do a lap, you have to like do a dive roll and like onto this like hard surface, so you're getting like bruised all over your knees and shit. Like, they do not make this look romantic. They like, because you have those really high highs where they're like, oh shit, he fucking spiked the ball, and I recovered it. That's crazy. Like, they have those moments, but like those training things, they really hammer it in. Like, this is hard shit. They are tired, and this is not glamorous. This is just getting better.
Yeah, that's the same with Hajime no Ippo, because like when you think of that show, you think of the fucking boxing and the beautiful animation and the what's it called, the Dempsey roll. And I'm sure you've seen it, like of him doing that spiral and doing the fucking punches. Yeah. You think of that. You're like, I can get in the ring and do that. What you don't see in the anime is him every single day in the morning doing his job for his mom, and then immediately going and running like several miles, and then just for hours punching in the ring, shadow boxing, bag punching, all this other stuff, and then going on weekends, like weekend retreats for training, and then like going on like to meet weight, not having to eat for like a week, but like a tomato, or just drinking water. And you're just, when you see it, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's just, it's stuff like,
and it's like seeing those training things. 'Cause like, you know, I've seen like 2 clips from Ippo, right? And one of them was just like, this man is like he can't see anymore because his eyes are so swollen, and so he's just punching blind, and he doesn't know that he's like winning. Like he's knocked out his opponent, but he doesn't know, so he's still like walking forward and fucking punching into the dark. I was like, man, this is fucking sick, dude. But like, yeah, those moments are like you just can't, like, without the context of like, wow, this man has like really shitted up like his body, like it's like the hours, days of nothing but training. Crazy.
The matches are always good, but it takes a while to get there because you got to see the training and their daily lives and stuff, and them getting to know each other, and then the matches are always towards like the middle to end. So like you don't see that, you just see the fucking the result of all their training, because Ippo will be like, oh, I learned this in training. If I do this, and he doesn't even get the Dempsey role until like, man, the late second season, and there's only I think three seasons, and he did it on a fluke, and then his coach was like, he's doing the Dempsey role. He was like, if I just dodge and use my momentum to punch, it'll carry me, because like I'm worn out right now. So like he's dodging in like the infinity sign, and then he's like, I gotta use my momentum to attack him, and then he does, and then he learns how to like do it, and then they train him like hard on the do it, like he has to learn how to go under bars and stuff without hitting his head, and then like to keep the momentum, because he's basically holding his breath when he's doing it, because he just keeps the momentum.
I love shit like that. Like in similar thing happens in like Demon Slayer, where like they're like learning how to do like water breathing and learning how to do like, and characters are having to like invent moves on the fly because they're like, shit, it's not working. Fuck, what do I do? Like I'm such a sucker for shonen stuff like that it's like, oh dude, like I love that.
I love shonen anime, but like even more so lately I've been getting into rom-coms. As much as I love a stupid shonen anime that's like really good and well animated, fucking your boy gonna sit back and watch a rom-com, and this season is like the season for that, because it's slice of life basically, because you had like My Dress Up Darling, Aharen-san wa Hakarene, fuck, what is that superhero anime I was talking about, Life After World Domination.
I was gonna say My Hero Academia.
So I want to talk about Miss Nagatoro. I want to talk about My Dress Up Darling and Miss Nagatoro. People think they're bad because a few people like post fan service of the show online, but the shows aren't like that. They're not like My Dress Up Darling's about a girl that likes to cosplay, who incidentally meets a guy who likes sewing. And she's like, what if you make my cosplays, because I'm terrible at sewing? And he's like, I don't know. I make clothes for like small China dolls. I've never made them for humans before. So like the whole show is her being hyped about cosplaying and getting to know this guy who doesn't have any friends. And this guy coming to terms with, I now know a friend, and she's interested in what I'm doing, and I've never sewn for people, so I have to learn. It's just him learning and her being hype, and then them going and showing her outfits. Whereas Miss Nagatoro is basically Senpai, the main character, just gets accosted by these 4 girls at the very first scene of the anime. Like, he's in the library and he draws manga and he studies. And, like, they look at his stuff and they're like, oh, what a fucking nerd and stuff. And they're just joking around with him and shit. Or joking on him. Until, like, Nagatoro was there and she's like, she likes him. That, like, she likes him, but this is kind of goes back to, well, if I pick on him, that means I like him. And that's what, so from that day forward, he's usually in the art room by himself drawing, and then she just goes in there and just fucking ruins his day, and until, like, he finds out, oh, I'm starting to like her. She's like, she comes every day, and we're becoming friends, even though she doesn't like to show it. She does want to hang out, and we do stuff together. Like, I'm such a sucker. And then,
man,
My Life After World Domination's basically, what if the Red Power Ranger fell in love with Rita Repulsa? Because the main character,
that's pretty good.
The main character is a Red Ranger, and he falls in love with one of the bad guys who's a girl, and they're fighting one day, and he's just like stricken with her, and as they're fighting, he's like, "So, how about we date?" And that's cool. And she's like, "What? Is this a trick?" And then they start talking, and then they start dating. And then the show is about them trying to get around the fact that their teams are fighting one another, but they sneak off and pretend to fight, but then they're just like having a picnic, or they're just talking. And it's so good. It's such a good show.
Man, I like. It's crazy to me that a lot of these concepts haven't been done already, but some of them are like really good and really original. Like I like, that's a really good concept for a show.
I recommend watching it. Like, it's it's super funny, and the theme song fucking slaps.
Anime intros are starting to get very, very good at like intros that are good. And like, I don't know. We're in an era in which like anime intros are extremely good to listen to, and like even on their own.
Oh yeah. Even one now. I'm not spoiling anything because I know you haven't watched it, but Spy Family. That intro's really good, but that outro's fucking good. It's on par with Odd Taxi. It has that vibe.
Ooh.
It has that vibe. It's like
and Odd Taxi's so good.
Dude, Odd Taxi is so I can't praise Odd Taxi enough. I wanted to get my mom to watch it since they put it out in English dub.
Yeah, dude.
Because my mom does sometimes take interest in what I'm watching. Like, I was watching anime the other night, and she was like on the bed behind me laying down. She's like, "How can you read all that?" Because it was in subs, because the show's only in subs. I'm like, it gets easy. I'm like, it's no problem. And then I explained the plot to her of Spy Family, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." I was like, "Well, you want to watch it in English?" I'm like, "They got an English dub." She's like, "No, I'm tired. I'm probably gonna go to bed." I'm like, "Well, we're gonna watch Odd Taxi one of these days."
Yeah, hell yeah.
So there's that.
Odd Taxi's so good. So that that's good choice. And like, God, I don't know. That's a cool thing to have a mom that's like, "Yeah, I'll watch that. That's fine."
Yeah, my mom one time watched all of Blue Gender with me, which is a weird.
That is weird.
But like, I don't know what she liked about it. I think she liked that they were fighting giant bugs. She didn't really get like the intricacies of the story, but she liked that they were just like in mechs fighting, and she watched that with me. And I think she knows Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, of course. But
yeah, Blue Gender's a fucking weird one though. That's like being like, "Yeah, Mom, do you want to watch Serial Experiments Lane?"
My mom would be like, "What the fuck are you watching?" But
hey, what is this? And you're like, "I don't know what it is either."
Yeah, but like, it just so happened that like James had lent me the Blue Gender complete set, and Mom had, I guess, caught it when I started it and was watching it with me. So like that's cool. If anything that my parents supported is me watching watching anime and stuff and cosplaying, because I used to go out and cosplay at cons, and my parents would love to take me because that means that they get to visit another city and take in the city, and when they were done, they get to take pictures with people in costumes. my dad was like loved doing that, and my mom did too. Even like this year, since cons are opening again, my mom was looking for a cosplay to do because she wants to go to a con.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Man. Well, we are super over time already.
We're way over time, but I'm sorry. I get excited.
We can't... Listen, no one is going to fault you for talking about things that you're excited about. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are at time, so we're just going to close it. We're on Spotify, iTunes, any podcatcher you listen to, iHeartRadio, all that jazz.
Yep, and YouTube.
We're on YouTube, baby. Subscribe and like and share it with all your friendos. And TikTok now. I got to put another video on, but the phone recording device that I was using for it, or the screen recording, was acting really weird and didn't want to record anything. I think it was like a timed trial, so I got to find another one. So we do have a TikTok. I haven't updated in like a week, but once I get it going again, I'll do it because I have a few things marked that I want to record. But we do use it. And
I listen, and TikTok is just getting started, baby.
Yeah, baby. It's gonna get bigger and better once we hire that TikTok fucking editor.
Yeah, we're gonna blow up. We're gonna hire the best TikToker, and they're gonna do it all for us.
But yeah, we're on like everything basically. I think everything, except Instagram and Twitter. Because we are on Facebook.
True.
But we'll get that sorted out later. But for now, you can listen to everything. Listen to us on everything except for those two things I said. So, while you're contemplating why we're such dipshits on social media, I want you to get all your favorite anime, get your parents and sit them on the couch, and go get them.
Go get them.
I was the first guy to invent anime. I wanted to do Star Wars animated.
I not only invented anime, I invented Japanese as well. I invented all of Japan. Did you know it doesn't actually exist? It's just a hologram.
It's just like one of my movies. Samurais? I invented them. They wish they had lightsabers.
What do you think Jedis are? They're just samurais.
Yeah, they're just samurais. Not because I watched a bunch of samurais, but because I invented them. Mm-hmm. They used to call me Old Shogun Georgie.
Time's a flat circle, and this just proves that.
The Earth flat. That was me.
All of it flat. That was me. I sat on the Earth. It turned flat.
I used to sit in the moon and watch the Earth as it went by in circle. Oh fuck! I got bit by an ant. I invented ants. God.
That ant's because I heard you talking shit.
Hey, you want to talk shit about old Georgie? Here's a net, right in your pants. God. Later.